Outside from religion and social values, we're also looking at resources and power. So we need to expand our economy. We've industrialized, that's great, but now we need things that we might not have here. And industrialization here and in Great Britain and in Europe has led to more demand for products of foreign and domestic nature. So there's things that we have and there's things that we need. And things that we need are things like gold, lumber, iron, carbon. This stuff is mined out of the earth or chopped down from the earth. This stuff cannot easily be replaced. It's not infinite. We have a finite supply of this stuff. And so if we use all of ours, we need to get it from somewhere else. And so it's going to become necessary for us to go to other places and take control of the resources to build our own economy. Now, again, this is not specific to the United States. Europe is doing this too. Most places that are industrialized are doing this to the places that haven't industrialized, which is why you're going to get places like the countries of Africa and India and a lot of the Asian nations that are going to be taken over because they didn't industrialize at the same time. And so these bigger powers came in and took them. And there's going to be a lot of issues with that, obviously. But when we get into the Cold War, you're going to see a lot of decolonization and a lot of anger, which is rightfully justified because people came in and took their stuff and said, you don't deserve this because you're not like us. So food products are also going to be a big issue because things that used to be available only to the very rich are now more commonplace. So now people are used to being able to get some types of fresh fruit, coffee, sugar, olive oil, and other types of oils, and other items are now being able to be bought by the middle class. So we need to get more of it because we need to sell it to the middle class. And again, the more resources you control, the more power you have in the world economy. And so in the 1880s, 1884 to 1885, a group of European countries met in Berlin, Germany, and they held the Berlin Conference. And it is exactly what I just said. It is a group of European powers. The biggest ones are there, and they sit amongst themselves in Berlin and they divide up Africa for themselves. They make no regard to the fact that there are already people in Africa, that there are kingdoms, there are tribes, there are different ways of life in Africa. The European countries go in without any input from the Africans or the African nations, or anybody who's living in Africa is not invited to this conference. And the Europeans divide up the whole continent of Africa for themselves based on what resources they want. And then they just go take it. And that's why some of the borders of the African states are very, I don't know, square. They were made by people sitting at a table in Berlin cutting up Africa without the African people's options or inputs or even consideration, which shouldn't surprise you, but if it does, there it is. So America is not really part of this Berlin conference. So what we are doing is we are focusing on the Western Hemisphere, things that are close to us. We are looking at Latin America, the Pacific Islands, and the Caribbean. And those things are much closer to us than what's going on in Africa. So we want to control that stuff. But we know, hopefully you know, that Spain still has pretty big influence in those areas. And there are European powers holding on to their islands in the Caribbean. So by 1898, William Seward has gotten his way. We have taken over the Midway Islands. We are going to take over the Philippines, Guam, and Wake Island. These names will come back during World War II, so it's important that you hear them now. We are going to force Hawaii into an unfair treaty. We are going to gain access in Nicaragua and Panama. We're going to take over islands in the Caribbean to free them from Spanish rule. And we are going to increase our naval fleet to 160 ships, which makes us one of the top 5 naval powers in the world during the beginning of the 20th century. Now, of course, not everybody's into this idea. We do have people who impose imperialism. Names you've heard of before: Mark Twain, William Jennings Bryan, Andrew Carnegie. These men and few others form the Anti-Imperialist League. They are against imperialism because according to these men, according to this league, the idea of taking over another country goes against the idea of self-determination, which is a founding value of our Constitution. And if it is a founding value of our Constitution and we don't give it to somebody else, then it is a morally wrong thing for us to do, and we are not really following our national ideals. Some of these men also deny the concept of social Darwinism, where the idea that they say whites are not biologically superior. We do not have a right to rule. But there are plenty in the Anti-Imperialist League who still think that that's true, that we do have the right to rule. And a lot of people are still concerned about adding non-white people to the country. Maybe we don't have the right to rule them, but they don't need to be here. So the anti-imperialists, their main takeaway really is that we need to go back to isolationism. If it's good enough for George Washington, it's good enough for us. Why are we dealing with all these other nations? Let's just stay out of it. Let's just keep ourselves here. And it's very costly to colonize other places, especially in the Pacific. That's really far away. That's not very close to us. So the Naval Act of 1890, which is what built our Armed Navy up to be 160 ships, to be the top 5, that costs a lot of government money. Those things don't just happen. You can't just make ships for free. And in some cases, controlling those foreign territories is going to cost us more than they're worth. We're going to have to send somebody to govern the Philippines, to govern Guam, to govern the Midway Islands. What are we getting from them? Is it worth it? According to the Anti-Imperialist League, no, not at all. And we're going to see this debate continue and intensify as the Spanish-American War ensues, and once the Philippines are colonized. That's going to become a big sticking point, and you can decide for yourself who's right. But we're going to cover the Spanish-American War in the next video.